Hey guys, welcome to our last May informational interview. We will be continuing them in the month of June, so look forward to that. Today we have Don Haynes and Casey Sagolla-Slamp. My name is Christina.
I'm Kayla.
My name is Danya.
Stefan.
And I'm Don Haynes.
And I'm Casey Sagolla-Slamp.
Nice.
All right, so let me go through the overviews. Today we start at 4:10 group introductions, which will be up in a second. And at 4:15 we'll start the interview and we're going to be asking questions. And at 4:55 we'll wrap up and reflect. At 5 we'll end the call. So you guys want to be successful, just grab a piece of paper and a pen to take notes. And yeah.
So these are the businesses who have previously supported Passion Impact, and we encourage you to support them whenever you can. And yeah, if you find any of your favorite ones, shout it out.
Echo's tacos are amazing. Just saying.
Safeway.
Really? Safeway? Of all of them, Safeway?
Yeah.
Fair. That's fair.
All right.
All right, so meeting expectations, we do show gratitude and respect for all of those in the chat. Rue will be watching us just like he is up in that top right corner. If you have a question, you can raise your hand, and the way to do that is by clicking participants and raise hand. No nudity, vulgar or demeaning language, inappropriate sharing of your screen, or inappropriate background images will be tolerated. We do reserve the right to remove any individual from our programs, and depending on the severity, might be banned for any future programming. For everybody but our guests, your screen names should just be your first name unless you also want to join in that. But the most important thing is to have fun and stay engaged.
So here we have Don Haynes. He attended a section leader in marching band at the University of Texas. Mr. Haynes served as the director of bands at the LBJ High School in Austin, Texas for 40 years. He traveled with LBJ Band and performed across the globe, including ambassador trips to China, England, France, and Italy. While teaching LBJ High School, his colleagues selected him Teacher of the Year 4 times. He is frequently invited to conduct reunion bands in Texas, New Mexico, Louisiana, and Florida. Mr. Haynes is past president of the board of the director of the Texas Bandmasters Associates and serves on Longhorn Band Legacy Foundation. The Paranormal Voices of Austin, Texas. So the summer of 2018, Haynes was inducted into the Texas Band Directors Hall of Fame. He's passionate about teaching and conducting music with young students.
Casey Sagolla-Slamp graduated from James Madison University with a BM in music performance. He is a professional musician currently living, teaching, and performing in Raleigh, North Carolina. He is a percussionist, so all things drums. He has the opportunity to perform with symphony, orchestras, jazz bands, brass bands, and theater productions. He performed in other countries, most recently in Taipei, Taiwan, during the 2019 World Percussion Championships. He is also heavily involved with music education, maintaining a private studio, as well as teaching at several schools in the Central Carolina area. He's passionate about composing music and performing it with others to create an emotionally fulfilling and meaningful experience for audience members.
Welcome, you two. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Oh, but there's one more thing I forgot to share, which is...
Yep.
Sorry, I missed it. This is the one. Yes.
Which is the group introduction. So we're going to do a quick warm-up for each other, just to get to know each other and warm up. I can start with me. Yeah, so you're going to say name, pronouns for the students, school, and the question of the day. So my name is Danya. My pronouns is she and her. I go to Franklin High School. And what instrument do you play or want to play? I would probably want to play piano because I don't know any instruments. And while we do this, we're going to have to popcorn it to someone. So I'll popcorn it to Kayla.
All right. Okay. I'm Kayla, and my pronouns are she and her. She, her, yeah. And I go to Franklin High School, and I don't really play any instruments. Well, I tried in like second grade, but that didn't work out. So I would probably want to play guitar because it looks fun to play. And let's go to Don.
So my major instrument, and when I got my bachelor's degree, was clarinet. I performed on bass clarinet, which is a fantastic instrument. It's loved mostly by those who play bass clarinet. And I play a little piano. I sing. My passion is conducting bands and orchestras, and teaching young people. So that kind of, I'm a little bit eclectic. I just do a little bit of everything.
Yeah, yeah. So now you just pick someone to hand it over to the mic.
Ah,
Yes.
yes, Casey.
Great. Obviously I'm a percussionist. So I play drums, keyboard instruments. I also do play piano. But the one instrument I've always really wanted to play was cello. I think it's a beautiful instrument. I'm absolutely awful string player. I've tried guitar and violin, I just couldn't do it. Thankfully, I found percussion. But if I could go back and have a different talent, I would love to play cello. And I'll hand it off to Stefan.
Stefan, he, him, James Madison University. I do play drums still because my roommate thankfully has a drum set in the basement.
Excellent.
But if I were to play another instrument, I would love to play piano. I feel like that would be so fun. So one of our students' parents dropped off a piano at the office, and I kid you not, like it's an upright grand piano, and it's there, and I mess around with it sometimes. So that's really nice. I'm gonna pass it off to Christina.
I'm Christina. I go by she, her, and I go to Franklin High School. I can't sing, so if I could play anything, I guess it would be my voice.
Oh, nice.
Oh
Awesome.
yeah, that's smart. All right, yeah. Thank you for sharing, everybody. That was really great getting to know that. Yes. All right, so let's go get into it. So let's clear any confusions that probably kind of wandering around, especially for me. I know you guys are like you guys are in the music industry, and you guys work around teaching and just supervising, like stuff like that. Can you guys go more in depth with what you guys are currently doing as a occupation or anything like that? And we can start with Casey.
Cool. Yeah. So currently I'm a professional musician in Raleigh, North Carolina. My days are varied, which is great. And I love the fact that I can do something different on Tuesday than I do on Friday. But primarily I'm a performer. So I play professionally with the symphony here, with the brass band, a jazz ensemble, and lots of theater productions, in the area, colleges and high schools. So that's kind of my first love, is to play music and perform for audiences. But I am really passionate about education, specifically music education. So again, looking back at my schedule during the week when I'm not playing or having rehearsals, I work with a few different band programs in the Raleigh area, as well as teach privately. So you kind of break my time into slots. I think 50 to 60% is performing, probably 30 to 40 is teaching, and unfortunately a very small sliver is composing right now, just because I don't have tons of time. But like, education and performing is generally what I do most of.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. I don't know, it's like, so yeah, passionate about education, music education, like specifically. Like, I don't know, it's crazy how you can like play at the same time and then also like teach. I don't know, it's like balancing both of that seems really hard. Is it
Get
like,
paid.
yeah, and get paid? That's like crazy too. But yeah, what about you, Don?
Yeah, so I am, 95% music education, to break it down in terms of what I do most. Okay, for 40 years, I know that sounds like just an amazing number of years, but they just sort of add up, and it didn't feel like 40 years, but it was. Taught total for 42 years. And here's what I did. Get out of bed, you go to school, you teach beginner band, you teach intermediate band, you teach advanced band, you teach marching band. Sometimes the program is good enough to have a jazz band. If you're blessed to have a percussion instructor, they have their own world. That's pretty much the model in Texas for schools that have the funds to support that. So our world has become very specialized. As the head band director, we tend to be more of a manager than teach, because there are always so many different things. We have to order uniforms, we have to order new percussion equipment, woodwinds, brass. Oh my gosh, there's just a number of things. So it helps to be organized. Even though you are a music teacher, there's so many other things that go along with that. But my number one passion is conducting. I have my master's degree from UT in conducting. And whenever we got ready for band, especially with the Wind Symphony, that's usually the name you go for the top group, we were able to play some really serious music that was originally written for orchestra. And then it was, arranged for a wind band, woodwinds, brass, and percussion. So for example, the clarinets and flutes would play the violin part and stuff like that. So I got a chance to conduct a lot of major works, Pines of Rome and Till Spiegel, and a lot of wonderful works like that Casey gets to play the real thing in the Raleigh Symphony Orchestra. So, but at any rate, and then real quickly, the last thing I really jumped into was life coaching, because band directors spend a lot of time, helping young people get through their teens, whether mom or dad, or getting a divorce, or some major illness. Kid is about to lose a grandparent, and parents. I mean, those are real life issues, and I was quite often I was the guy that the kids would come to for comfort and support. So we do it all, and the music education. It's not just 1, 2, ready, play. Okay.
Great.
And turn it back over to Stefan.
Going back to Danya. It seems like she has a question. Yeah.
Yeah, so I see that you guys do a lot. You guys, music education, you guys perform, you guys help other people and adults. And it's really interesting how you guys do so much and you guys keep constantly doing it. So my question is, what drew you guys to music? Were you guys like even thinking about music, or was it like accidental? Or what was it? We can start with Casey.
Cool. So this is always the fun question to answer from the in-laws. Why did you choose to be a musician? Why aren't you a doctor? No, so funny enough, when I was in high school, I loved playing in band. I had an awesome band director who I looked up to. My parents were actually both musicians, and my dad was a band director as well. So I kind of grew up in a musical household, and then had a lot of great mentors during my formidable years. But I was still kind of looking into studying engineering, the sciences. So I remember I applied, half the schools I applied to was to study engineering, and then I applied to a few music schools. And it really came down to the wire. I went to James Madison to visit, and I loved the campus, and I loved the program, the professors there. Just that ultimately swayed me to stay to choose music. So a lot of it comes down to role models, and my story came down to role models I had kind of in the music world going through high school and things, and then kind of going to that university and finding an attraction and feeling that kind of like that hominess that I was looking for. And once I kind of made that decision, I never really looked back. Funny enough, a lot of the students I teach don't want to study music, even though I love it so much. A lot of them, want to go into the sciences, which is great, and I'm, all for those things. But I think a lot of students really look at involvement in the arts and say, man, this really kind of set me up to do well in other areas. The biggest thing for me is not that my students, you know, follow the same footsteps and decide to go into music, but it's so they learn how to be really good at something when they're in high school, so they can apply those skills later down the road in whatever career path they choose. So for me, like I loved music, and I again had those role models to sway me. But I know for other students, I think having the enjoyment in high school and the experience of excelling at something sets themselves up for success either way. So I think either way you look at it, music kind of played an important role in everyone's life in high school.
Yeah, I can see how it all plays. Like some students do learn in high school, and like they're like, oh, let me just start this new path, and that's really interesting though. We can start with Don Haynes.
Okay. So I love Casey's response, and it reminded me to mention at this point in time the power of music. And there have been really a lot of dissertations written out there on the planet about the power of music and what it does for the individual. It just so happens that Casey and I loved it so much that we decided that it was our calling to be a performer, to be a teacher. And in that process, if you love working with people, I'm describing myself mostly here, love working music, and then I love teaching, those three activities, roll it up into one sum of one skill. What do I want to do? Well, when I decided to major in music, I thought those three aspects really fit what I'm hoping to get out of life. And the more you jump into it, you realize, wow, this is really, this. I'm so glad I did. As Oprah Winfrey would say, you discover your purpose. And for me, music education includes not only playing music and having a great time on the marching field and in the concert hall, but just helping kids, young people, I call them kids, and including college students, helping them get through a situation like my band director and Casey's band director, I'm sure, I helped him. My parents were also musicians. Mother was an opera singer and father was the band director. So, music was in the family. But just to bring closure to the most fun I ever had was getting to where, and not to embarrass Mr. Stefan Pearls, but you take a young person in at the ninth grade and they can barely walk and spit and chew gum. And by the time they get out of high school, they're real men ready to go off to college and, make their impact on the world. Speaking of passion. At any rate, that's a joy for me, is to help young people grow up. And the vehicle of that is music. We take them to competitions and we get ready for all kinds of things, whether it's a concert or a pep rally, football game. In the state of Texas, football is huge. And the marching bands are right there with them. So there's so much fun as well as learning opportunities and experiences. And you also learn to just be a part of a team. And the last thing I'll say on this topic really is, you go into corporate America, and I hope that some of you young people will catch this part. One of the first questions that college admissions officers will see or look on your resume and is, what organizations were you in? Did you know how to take orders? Did you know how to be organized? Do you know how to be a team player? And then when you get a job, the person who's the CEO or the guy who owns the company, the lady who's running the whole bank, they want to make sure that you know how to be organized. Are you reliable? Are you dependable? Are you punctual? And band teaches all of those things, so you kind of get chewed out. And I say that with a smile on my face, but those are some things that really makes or breaks a company, is the people that get the job. Can you depend on them when the boss isn't looking over your shoulder? So there are a lot of wonderful things that come out of teaching band, and our band program, LBJ High School, has been very, I have former students that have gone on to be professors at Harvard and Stanford and over in Barcelona. And it's not because of me, but it was because of a lot of things. But band, they would tell you, is a big part of of that journey.
Yeah. Well, talking about college admissions and being like reliable and organized. Um, let's talk about since a lot of us don't really know what was the process of you guys going to college or university, or like what do you need to do? Do you have to know to be singer or anything that has to do with music related? We can start with Casey.
Yeah, that's a great question. I assume a lot of people probably, think, what do you need college for? Or if you're just good, you're good, right? That's the way it works out. We're actually really fortunate in this country to have the most music colleges than any other country in the world. We have so much access to great teachers, great facilities, great performers. That not any other countries really have the same level of access that we do. So it makes the process pretty straightforward. I can talk about the performance side if Don, you want to cover like kind of the music education side of things. But as a music major, regardless of your concentration, so performance, education, business, you need to audition for the teaching faculty, and you play your instrument for them about 20-30 minutes or so. They give you feedback and then decide kind of whether or not you're at the talent level that they want to accept into what they call their private studios, which is their private students. Once you successfully pass the audition, then you're already in the music school. You do also have to get into the school academically, obviously, so you have to generally get into the school, but then you also do have to pass the music audition, which is a second component that other majors don't have to go through. My experience specifically at James Madison was that we, as a performance major, I had to take extra lessons during the week, and I also had to give an additional recital throughout my college career. So I had to give 2 recitals, which is just me performing by myself, which sounds really nerve-wracking, and it is. But you play in front of your friends and family members and professors, and it's actually a grade that you need to perform at a certain level to get your degree, which makes sense. But as far as my experience goes, I had the audition process and then the extra lessons, and then I just had kind of that that extra performance requirement at the end of my degree, just to show that I studied my instrument enough that I can make a living, upon leaving the school, which is really important, right? That's what the schools are designed to do. They want to make sure they give you the skills you need to be successful. So, I thought James Madison did an excellent job giving me those skills, and I really enjoyed my time there. And the process was pretty easy to navigate. You just need to also recognize that hard work is obviously a part of the equation in getting through the process. So, and Don, if you want to talk about kind of the music education side of things.
Sure. So I'm going to answer your question in 2 ways, and as Casey says, it's a great question. So I'm going to speak kind of a little bit more in the general terms. If you decide you want to go into music education, generally it could become a choir director or orchestra director or band director, elementary school teacher. It's not just band, but it's all of those. And it's part of the public school system. And we are regular teachers, just like your math teachers and English teachers. But our subjects obviously are music. If I'm a senior in high school and I'm totally clueless as to, gee, I want to be a band director, I think, but what do I do? Well, it's very intimidating at first, but if you're blessed with a good counselor or band director, they can walk you through it. And it's basically, what do you want to do? And everyone needs to realize that different colleges and universities have different standards. For example, if I'm a wonderful percussionist like Casey is, and I want to go to Juilliard, well, it's going to be really hard for me to get into Juilliard because it's like going to Harvard to study law. Well, you've got to really be sharp, and it doesn't hurt to have somebody, supporting you. So you have junior colleges, that was my rule. I went to a junior college in Corpus Christi where I grew up. And then after those 2 years, because it was only a 2-year school, I then went to the University of Texas and got to finish my junior and senior year, got my bachelor's degree, and so forth. So, meanwhile, you're taking all these classes that teach you how to teach other instruments. So I can teach clarinet because that's my major instrument. But then I also have to take a percussion class, and I have to take cello and all of those instruments that I may have to teach a sixth grader, but I don't necessarily have to be able to give a full-blown concert. So it's pretty just a variety of courses that we have to take to be able to be a music education major. And I'll just throw this in too. A lot of my former students would go, "Oh, I'm going to be a band director," because they had such a great experience at LBJ High School with me. Then they go to college, and it's not that they can't do it, but then they realize, you know what? I don't think I really want to do this for the rest of my adult life. And so they change their major. And that happens a lot. And you know what? It's okay. They say the average college student changes his or her major 3 times, which is, might be, most people go, yeah, that's me. And it just so happens that I went right into college and I knew what I wanted to do. So I didn't have to go through that, but it's okay. Part of going to college is also learning about what you like now that you're no longer a kid. What do you feel like you want to do? Do you really want to be a doctor? Do I really want to do that? Yes. Okay. Now you got to, walk the walk and go through all of that. Or do I really want to be a band director? That's why a lot of people will get really close to maybe their junior or senior year and then decide that they have picked the wrong major. And it's okay to change. But I think the main thing is to just stay in touch with self. What is your passion? What do you really like doing? Because the worst thing you can do is go get a degree in something that you just really don't want to do. So that's always, and that message there is kind of to the overall, the high school students there that will be listening to our video is decide what you want to do, give it a shot. Get some outside coaching from teachers that you trust, your parents, your friends. It's a pretty serious decision. And if you realize, oh my gosh, I really don't want to be, I'm not going to make it. I'm not good enough. It's okay. You look in the mirror and you go, I really enjoy being in band, but I'm not cut out to be a band director. So I'm going to go do something else. And that's okay.
I was just going to add to that, actually. Dom made me think of something as well. Again, talking about the access of music to music, all of these universities across the country, you don't have to major in music to be involved with music in college. There are tons of friends of mine who decided they wanted to have a music minor. So what that means is you don't have to audition. You can study something else, but you can also take some music classes and play and perform and, learn more about your instrument. So you get to have, a music experience without potentially making that your career. So that's just something to consider for everyone, who are interested in music and are kind of on the fence whether or not to make it a career. You still have the opportunity to be as involved as much as you want when you go to college using or utilizing a music minor or other ensembles like that. So just food for thought.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, thank you for the advice. And I'm passing this to Christina.
I was just curious, going back to the audition process, what is that like? And I'm guessing you either, it's like a pass, no pass thing, right? Is it?
Yeah, so it depends on the school. For instance, Don, you went to University of Texas, is that correct?
Right.
Right. So Texas has some phenomenal schools, UT being an excellent music school, University of North Texas being an excellent music school. At both of those larger programs or more prestigious programs like Juilliard, you can throw them in as well. You have like 100 some kids trying out, right? And they might take 10 kids. so you can do the math, right? So they're just going to kind of rank students in order and, take kind of that top group of students. However, you can go and look at other universities that aren't going to have nearly the same volume of applicants, right? So they might take more students, or you just aren't competing with as many students. So that's just kind of an important distinction to make. Depending upon the school you go to, you might be competing against a ton of students for limited spots, or you might be competing against a small pool of students for an adequate number of spots. With regards to the audition process specifically, each school, again, does things slightly differently. But at James Madison, essentially, they could offer 6-7 spots a year, and they would essentially evaluate you on a wide range of criteria. And those with the highest scores were given admission, essentially. And then you could accept or deny that admission. So it's score-based. It's not necessarily pass-fail, just because a lot of institutions have a limited number of spots, just so they can keep their quota or studios smaller, keep the teacher-student ratio pretty small. So a lot of the times it's an evaluation process. You compare it to the other students, not necessarily pass-fail with a benchmark. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. That was really informational. Mr. Haynes, would you like to add to it?
Well, he pretty much nailed it all. And what most people don't know that are going to come out of high school and they're really fine violinist or cellist or trumpet player or percussion, you just think, oh, I want to go to this school. And then you have to try out. So they either accept you or they don't, or maybe you get on a waiting list. And a lot of that is because they only have so many spots that that professor can teach during the week. And these are little tidbits that most people don't know about. So a small music school, like there's one, I think it's in Cleveland, Curtis Institute of Music, is one of the most prestigious music schools. It's like, getting into Stanford or, Harvard or whatnot, but in the music industry. And they're only going to take so many. So it is kind of a competitive, well, not kind of, it is, it's very competitive. And I'll add this part too, they're very expensive. The top-notch schools are really, really expensive. So thank goodness in our country, there are schools that are really fine schools that don't cost as much. So if you have a degree from Harvard, unless you've got a major scholarship, you paid a lot of money for it. You can also get a degree. I'm not going to try to compare schools with Harvard, but you can go to University of Houston Law School and practice law. It won't cost you as much. And I'm using those extremes as an example of the way the whole college system operates. So, playing violin at Juilliard, there's this fantastic young violinist that is just incredible. His name is Ray Shin, and he's incredible. And he's very funny, and he has his own Instagram and all of that. And the guy is crazy. He's like so amazing. But how did he get there? His journey was different from mine. He probably started playing violin when he was 5 or 6 and just took a lot of lessons and practice. So, that's something else too. How hard are you willing to work to get into a certain school? And then you give it your best shot. And that's kind of the way our whole music world operates. You've got to compete, whether you're going to be the band director at this school, you have to interview, and everyone sits there on a committee and they say, we'll take this person. Thank you, everybody else, for coming. So I just wanted to add that element to it.
Yep.
Okay, back to you.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. That was great. And the competition side is pretty harsh. Mr. Haynes used to pin us against each other as drumline people and have us, I'm just kidding. He wouldn't do that. He wasn't that bad. So I actually I'm very curious about this part. As a musician of sorts, I understand that repetition and practice is necessary to becoming just like the best that you can be. Just like, doing a lab for chemistry, or, crunching numbers for accounting over and over and over again. I'm curious, Casey, we can go back to the practice field near Hillside when Scott Rickers is yelling at us, 52 to set 68 again, 52 to set 65 again, again. That repetition, the idea of repetition, as musicians, what has that done for you in your education? What has that done for you in your career? And what has that done for you in your life? And let's start with Haynes.
Okay. But I tell you what, if you, for people who are afraid of competition, then just about any industry you want to go into is going to twist you up and throw you down and stomp you right in the back of the, it's just, you got to be bold, and you have to, here's the way I would answer your question. That's a great question, Steph. And that is, in this day and time, almost everything is competitive. There are jobs that most people can just kind of do in their sleep, but we're talking about something that is competitive as an athletics. Wouldn't you love to be the one who holds up the trophy at Wimbledon? Yes, because I love tennis. Is that going to happen for me? No. I didn't go that route, and practicing at that level where you can hit the same shot over and over and over again and have that ball go exactly within 2 or 3 inches of where you want it to go. I studied flute at the University of Texas, even though my instrument is clarinet. And the professor was named Richard Hicks. And he loved to play tennis, and I love to play tennis. So we kind of traded off. He let me study flute with him if I would go play tennis with him after classes were over. And when we were on the tennis court, he was still a professor, right? And he had to teach. And he says, "Okay, Don, be sure you hit the ball with intent." And I'm thinking, hit the ball with intent? What is, oh, in other words, don't just swing the racket. Hit the ball, know where you want it to go. It's just, and I'm going to transfer that over to percussion. Man, some of the percussion, like the percussion guys we have at LBJ that you got to work with, is more than just, paradiddles and fundamental and stuff. It's lining up everything. Everything has to be perfect. Everybody's stick has to be the same height. And that's kind of gets into the most refined part of competition is, and it's attention to details. If you guys talk to the students, if you don't remember anything else from our talk today, it's remember those words, attention to detail. Quite often will surface you to winning the position of whatever you're trying to, whether you're trying to get into a certain university, or you're trying to be the percussionist at the Raleigh Symphony Orchestra. A timpani roll is not just roll, 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 roll. It's a fine art, and you've got to know what you're doing. You're not going to get the job. So these are the kind of things that we explore and we learn just in going through band. So yeah, competition is great. And if you love competition, that's good, but you have to always keep keep a good head on your shoulder about it. It doesn't mean that you're awful if you don't win first place. Only one person going to win first place, or one band. Everybody else, thanks for coming. We'll see you next time. But and you learn so much about yourself when you compete. So I'll turn it over to Casey, excuse me.
Yeah, that's great. Everything Don said is spot on. Competition is everywhere. So the sooner you embrace it in a healthy way, healthy and positive way, I think the happier you're going to be kind of achieving certain goals and benchmarks throughout your life. The one, just with regards to practice, Stefan, touching on your original question, my mantra isn't like practice makes perfect, right? That kind of touches on what Don was saying. There needs to be attention to detail, but it's perfect practice makes perfect, right? So learning how to practice is actually a skill. And this is like one of my favorite topics to talk about in master classes and with students. But you can actually like practice how to practice. correctly. I know it sounds kind of meta and kind of strange, but it really is an art, right? To build a structure that you're going to use every single time you go, for me, into the practice room to play marimba. I know I'm going to do A, B, and C, evaluate, and then do A, B, and C 40 times before I move on. Just the ability to create that structure is really important, and that kind of is what separates professionals from amateurs, if you will, if we're talking about the music world, is just being able to know how to apply this structure to your practice so that you can achieve the result you want, and you can step into that role every single day without deviating from that. However, applying that to everything else, applying structure in practice and study is really important in every career. If you want to become a doctor, if you know how to practice really well as a musician, you will then know how to study really well to become a doctor. It's the same process. You're creating a system for you to learn material to achieve a goal, right? And the more you work on that system, the better off and the further you're going to go. So it sounds funny, but honestly, practicing how to practice leads to better results in the long run, even though it sounds kind of strange. Again, it's one of the most fun conversations to have with students, is just to show them, all right, you can't play this right now. I don't really care. I'm not going to tell you how to play it, but let's talk about how you can figure out how you can play it, right? So what can you do on your own to scaffold this part so that in 10, 20 minutes, you can play it successfully. Because ultimately, that's what helps make you successful without me. I don't want my students always listening to me. I want them to leave me alone pretty soon, right? I want them to be self-sufficient and great and able to solve any problem they come in contact with. So the faster I can get students to create their own structure and take control of their own practice and own problem solving, the more successful they're going to be. So again, going back to your original question, Stefan, like that approach to creating a system or a structure, I think is super important in every endeavor you take. That's generally just what makes people successful, is having a system, knowing how it works, and applying it to everything.
So it's basically the understanding, if we're boiling both of these down, is understanding that how to build the habit and how to be okay with that habit, and to like really refine that attention to detail of each of those steps to getting to the point where like you can be the best, you can compete, and even as a band or as an individual, you can still outcompete your competition. So that's great. Thank you for both of y'all. I think Christina has a question.
Yes. So going back to competition, I saw you performed at Taipei, Taiwan, and that's like pretty cool. I was wondering, what did you do to build up to that point? But also, you kind of have been like a role model for people, like that people see as an inspiration or like amazement. And I was wondering if you could talk about what that's like. And Don Haynes too, you talked about how not only do you teach people music, but you also has become someone that people like your students go to talk about their personal life. So I was wondering what that experience like.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was that for me? Christina, was that question for me?
For both of you guys. We can start with Casey.
Okay.
Cool. So your question was talking about Taiwan, steps to that, and then what was the second part? Sorry.
You have been like a role model for people that people see as like inspiration.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So Taiwan was definitely one of the most amazing, I think, music experiences I've had to date. I feel so fortunate to have had the opportunity to travel and perform there. The Taipei World Percussion Championships is essentially it's an international solo competition. It's a week long, where students from all over the world have to like qualify and then come to this championship and perform for judges, and then they give out medals and certificates and things for the winners. Most of the participants are from Southeast Asia, so obviously a lot from China, Taiwan, Japan, Indonesia. There were a few European students there, but I was the only American, which was kind of cool actually, to be immersed in a completely different culture. especially in an event which required me to follow a schedule that was in Mandarin and I couldn't read it. So I just had to kind of stick around and figure everything out on the fly. But it was truly an amazing experience. Just seeing how percussion is taught and understood in that side of the world. I was blown away with the level of talent from the students and from the professionals and the adults. It was awesome. But to get to that point, as a musician, especially a younger musician, you have a lot of competitions available to you all over the world, and some of them are like there are monetary prizes where you win, you get $2,000. Some of them is just kind of for prestige. But a lot of the best performing musicians in the world right today kind of took part in those competitions as they got older. Some of them are you apply online and submit a portfolio and then you get invited to come. Others are you just pay the audition fee and show up in Belgium or wherever the competition is. For this specific competition, there's actually two parts. I entered an online competition it was a solo competition that I ended up winning, and they paid for me to go to Taiwan and then perform in the championship. So it was really nice. I actually got to go for free, which is awesome. So like my journey there was I won one competition, which let me go to another competition. So a lot of the other competitions are somewhat similar in that there's kind of a first step, second step, but just embracing that world of competition and the sense of competing as a musician, it's your art, right? And it's important that you're playing for your reasons, not necessarily to beat or be better than someone else. Some people like that as motivation. I personally just want to play the best I can, not necessarily in competition with someone else per se. But it's still a good experience to kind of showcase talent from all over the world, and it does a really good job of just kind of spreading the art form to different cultures and things. So it was cool for me to get to be a part of that. Sorry, so that was a lot of information. But going back to the process, it's you usually apply for the competition, and then you either gain entry, or in my case, like I won one, which got me a scholarship to go to the other one. So that's part one. Part two is the role model. I'm still fairly young, so I'd be hard pressed if everyone thought I was a role model at this point. Don Haynes is by far much more a role model, had way more impact on many more people, in his career and lifetime. But I think the biggest thing for me is showing students that that when I started in college, I was not a big keyboard percussion player, which similar to piano, you hit with mallets like xylophone, marimba, those kind of instruments, if you guys are familiar with that. I did not do that much in college, or before college, but once I got to college, that's what I love to do. And that's ultimately what took me to perform in Taiwan. Is the thing I was the least confident about became a strength later on. And today I love marimba. I play like 3 hours of marimba a day. So for me, like when students kind of look up to me, I try to show them that something that was once a weakness is now a strength. And I think that's a really important thing to remember as you become a musician, is not as things that are hard for you now very well could be things you do better than everyone else later on. You know what I mean? And through hard work, through the practice that we talked about, you can kind of turn your weaknesses into strengths. So I think this competition, gearing from college up until last year when I went, all of that time was kind of me making my weakness into a strength. So I think when I work with other students, like that's the one thing I try to kind of pull out of them, or one of the things I try to pull out of them, is that it's okay to struggle with something, because with hard work, you can make that a strength later on. So that was a good question. That was a lot of information. I apologize if that was overload.
That was great. Hey, before we run out of time, Stefan, Christina, Kayla, and Danielle, I want to touch on something that's really, really critical. And it kind of comes out of this whole model of marching band and other aspects of it, whether it's a sport or something magnanimous like big marching band, and that's called leadership. And I'm really, really big on leadership and how a person becomes a leader. And there's so many different, I mean, this is probably a whole nother session that you guys can put together on leadership if you haven't already. But I'll just say this before we run out of time. And that is, the more confident you are about who you are and your efforts, as long as you are very sensitive to, and you want to help transform them to think a little bit differently. I did a TED talk, and at the very end of it, I wish I could redo it because it just went on a little bit long. But my main point for that is the magic of connecting with people is what it's called. And the main thing that I wanted to drive home was, if you're people-centered and you care about people and you want people to grow and become the best they can be, I know that sounds a little bit cheesy, but it really is fantastic. It's because that's what the world needs right now. And I'm not going to go play the political card, but just being a good leader, a good role model, those are the kind of people that influence people like Casey, me, and all of you. And you to be right now feel like I can never do that. Yes, you can. You can learn how to do it. You become confident. You practice. You get input. It's like a percussion violinist or pianist. You take, inflect those values as you get older. You don't have to be exactly like that teacher, but you certainly are going to be influenced and motivated by that teacher. So, that's a big thing that we do at drum major camp is leadership, and then section leaders. And, if I was the same age as Casey and he's my section leader, what right does he have to tell me what to do? Well, he's the section leader, so I've got to follow him. And if he's a bad section leader, that's another story. But he's not going to be a bad section leader. He's going to want me to be the best I can be, because he's going to graduate, and then I'll become a leader, perhaps. So I wanted to throw that in the mix too, because that comes out of that's one of the big things that comes out of music, whether you're talking about a performance or a conductor. The conductor is a leader, and I could go on and on and on, but I just wanted to plant that seed. I want people to think about leadership.
Thanks, Haynes. And I know that that's something that you preach about all the time. So, and definitely remember it from high school for sure. Casey and I also had a really great band director in college, and that was another part of his thing, was that leadership, the MRD leadership. And I can see that being consistent across so many different bands and how important that is. We are going to have to start wrapping up. So here's the last question for you. Danya, are you going to do it? Do you want me to do it? You got it. You got it.
Okay, I can do it. All right. Well, thank you guys. You guys answered really good questions. That was really great. A lot of advice that we can all take out of all your years of experience, to be honest. Well, now that we're running out of time, let's just say you're walking down the street, you're walking somewhere, and let's say your 10-year-old you walks by you and tucks your shoulder, your shirt, and they're like, Haynes, Casey, why should I pursue a career in music? And then you have 10 seconds because you're about to get into an elevator because you have to go home. What would you say in those 10 seconds that you're about to go?
That's great. Yeah, I mean, I would say, you do music so that you kind of discover, again, it sounds kind of cheesy, but you discover who you are and what your strengths are. as a performer, as a composer, as a teacher, I've learned like what I do well at and what I don't do, what I don't excel at. And, without having music to kind of be the vehicle for that, I think I would have a really hard time, finding those things out on my own.
Yeah, that was great. Let's go to Haynes.
Okay. In 10 seconds, I would say do music because it's going to open so many doors for you that you don't even know yet. And it's going to help you develop different parts of your personality. And it's an art form that you can participate in until you're 99 years old. It's one of those magical things that the good Lord has given us. We give each other. So do music because it opens a lot of different doors and it helps you develop your personality. It's going to help you become who you're going to become. That's it.
All right, well, I'm going to share our screen now just to wrap up. And so for all of us here, just to kind of think about, where, what we got out of this experience. So the three big questions are, what did you learn from this interview and that you're excited about? How can you use that information moving forward? And how can passion impact improve this specific experience? So answering 1, 2, or all three of those. I'm going to start because I always learn a lot from both of y'all. Two big things that I wrote down here were attention to detail. I've heard it before, but it's really important just to keep reminding myself that, because the more that you do something, the more that you think that you're, it's a habit. And so like you kind of don't think about it anymore. So really focusing on those details makes a lot of sense. And then perfect practice. Casey, that was really great, and I really appreciate just thinking about the art of practicing practice. So does anybody else have anything?
Yeah, I can go. Well, what did I learn and what am I'm excited about? Well, I just learned a lot about concentration, leadership, and organizations because I realized that it's not just music. You have there's a lot that goes on with it. Like you have to be organized. You have to know how to practice, and that was like all really interesting to like just absorb from both of you guys. So that was really exciting.
Nice, Tanya.
Okay, I can go.
Kayla, go for it.
I can go. Okay, so I personally don't play any instruments like that, and instruments, it's cool. It's cool to watch and listen to, but it's probably something I wouldn't want to do, wouldn't do in the future, as a kind of job. But learning from this, it was kind of a motivational speaking series, just hearing all these cheesy stuff. And honestly, it's really motivational, not even towards music for me, but other things rather than music. It's, I don't know if that makes sense or not, but yeah, yeah.
Kayla. Christina, you got anything?
Along with what Kayla said, I don't play music either, but hearing you guys talk about how learning music isn't just about learning how to play an instrument, but also it carries off of you in life. I can kind of a lot of what you guys said, I can relate it to martial arts. I've been doing that for a long time, and I learned a lot of life lessons from there, and that's really inspired me to really look at it in perspective and see what life lessons I'm getting out of that. So.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Yeah. With that, Haynes, Casey, anything that maybe you learned, maybe you brought something out of this that you're like, oh, I forgot about that.
I learned you guys just ask great questions. It was cool kind of thinking back on the origins of why I decided to do what I did. And I think that's something that we as musicians probably forget. We get so wrapped up in the next gig or a bunch of lessons or writing, finishing a project, and you kind of forget what was your original interest and original passion. So talking about it again is nice. I get to like relive what made me decide to pursue music and think about those people, those role models. That kind of helped nurture that interest. So I've enjoyed the questions and kind of giving me some nostalgia.
That's awesome, dude.
Awesome.
Haynes, anything on your side?
Well, just real quick wrap up. I think this is a great format you guys have created, where you bring people in and share their different their stories, and specifically for within the last hour, I think that the thing that impressed me or made the biggest impression on me is that people are not quite Casey get where he is. How did Don get where he is? Why did you guys decide to do that? It's our why, and just to have the opportunity to share that is huge, because it's all part of us being connected. And even if it's just a tiny little thread, I appreciate the opportunity to be here today with you guys.
Well, thank you two for joining us. Really quick, we have our next week's, this is the first of our June series, a school social worker at Oregon State University. Sahana Prasad, she is going to be fantastic and super excited to come talk. Deals a lot with trauma, students who've experienced trauma and working with them one-on-one. As always, we have Wednesdays for workout sessions with Kayla and Christina if you want to come get fit from 12 to 1 and bring an inhaler because it gets intense. On Fridays, we got game days with Mary and Alan. We usually play categories, some drawing games, some mafia, and more. So look out for those and sign up on our website. With that, we thank you so much, Haynes and Casey. Really appreciate your time, and we're just, I don't know, it's been awesome just to have you here and get to hear your stories. I mean, I honestly could probably sit around for 6 more hours and ask you questions with these ladies here, but we want to be respectful of your time. So if you all want to unmute yourselves, and Kayla, you know what I'm about to say.
Yippee!
Yippee!
That took me a second, but yes.
You knew.
All right.
Awesome.
All right.
Guys, I loved talking with you. Thanks so much for having me on. It was a pleasure.
Yes.
I love the model. I love what you're doing. Definitely looking to promote the future, your future interviews with my friends and students and things. I think everyone should sign in and hear all the things that you guys are doing. So definitely, yeah. Thanks so much.